Wow.
Welcome to Vintage SF Live. I'm here with, there he is. He's still there. I'm here with the Dr. Rockter himself, rocking his camera. We got Dr. Who? Dr. Daniel Otto Jack Petersen is with us. Welcome, Daniel.
Hey, I'm having immediate we've already had technical difficulties off camera, and now as soon as we went live, like everything like fell down. So here we go. I'm just trying to counterbalance your new like epic like visual sonic intros and so on. You've like really upped your game with all that, you know. So I'm like, okay, let's keep it real here. Like here's some like technical difficulties. It'll just be a second here. Okay. Here we go.
All right. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself so that the people who've never perhaps met you before, tell them a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your channel?
Sure. Hang on just a second. I feel like we're getting some strange noises or something there. Huh. Okay. Yeah, my name is Dan Petersen. I use my whole silly full name for all my stuff online, so you'll find me as Daniel Otto Jack Petersen. And my channel is technically Daniel Otto Jack Petersen, but I do a series on that channel called The Hole on the Corner, which is a discussion of R.A. Lafferty's works. Currently taking forever, going kind of chapter by chapter through his debut novel from 1968, Past Master. And I do some other stuff on there from time to time. I did a video on Ballard's Drowned World and Philip K. Dick's Ubik, and there's bits and pieces like that up there as well. So yeah, that's kind of what I do on my channel.
Where are you at? Where in the world are you at?
I am in Glasgow, Scotland. I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, but I've been in Glasgow since 2002. So yeah, there's a time difference here.
Yeah, it's evening over where Dan is right now. Yeah. And where I am, it's afternoon. So welcome to those who are with us. I see we already have 9 viewers come on, and we'll have more, I'm sure, coming on. Cool. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, cool. We already have 9.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little bit difficult at the beginning. It usually takes a little while to build up, and we'll start to see some comments eventually too. So now, Dr. Petersen, tell me a little bit about the doctor part, how you became a doctor.
Yes, I rarely get called that, but one of these days there's going to be one of those emergencies where somebody says, is there a doctor? But it's going to be appropriate to me. There'll be some kind of like English literature emergency somehow in some setting where we need an interpretation of a book, that's going to somehow save the situation or save somebody's life. And I'll be like, I'm a doctor of literature. I can help. But yeah, my PhD is in English literature, which I did at the University of Glasgow. Not that long ago. I kind of came to higher education pretty late in life. But yeah, my theoretical parameters were essentially kind of this thing called ecocriticism, which is looking at, ecology and stuff as it's represented in literature, and also monster theory, and kind of combining those into what I called the eco-monstrous or eco-monstrous poetics. You know how academics are coming up with all this kind of stuff. But and I applied all that theoretical approach mainly to R.A. Lafferty. But I had a pretty long chapter on Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian as well. And I brought in some stuff from some contemporary Native American authors and different things like that as well. So yeah, I was looking at Lafferty from an eco-monstrous perspective, whatever that means. Read the dissertation.
That's kind of what I was thinking, but that monster part seems very interesting. I should tell our viewers, the way that Daniel and I met is that Daniel started commenting on some of my videos when I did examine R.A. Lafferty. I was having a bit of a difficult time with him. I was confused for a while and trying to figure out. I found it perplexing, but I knew a lot of authors were really into R.A. Lafferty. And I think Past Master might have been the first one I read. And eventually, Dan encouraged me to keep going at it. And he invited myself and a couple other YouTubers to join him and talk about Lafferty. And we had a great time. We filmed a number of episodes in one long sitting, and it was a lot of fun. So Yeah, it's great that you've agreed to come on here and be with us live.
Yep. That's still a great memory for me when well, I stayed up all night or at least half the night from my end because I didn't really realize what I was doing. I can't believe you guys even went along with it, but like we were like going way past 2 hours into 4 hours into 7 hours, and you guys were like, yeah, okay, let's finish this out, because I was like, we got more stories to cover here, you know. But yeah, that was really fun, and I really enjoyed seeing Richard's little journey with Lafferty, where he's like, I'm a little baffled by this novel Past Master. I'm more baffled by another novel called Fourth Mansions, and then you got the stories,
Yeah.
the best of, and you were like, okay, wait, I think I like Lafferty, you know, like, so that's how a lot of people come in, is through the short stories, which I love too, but I just love the novels as much, but they are more difficult.
And for those viewing, the people who had joined us is Chris of Liminal Spaces and Virgil of literally books that were with us at that time. So yeah, we got to know each other quite well. Were you kind of wrecked after that one? Because
Yeah, man.
going like 4 in the morning.
I mean, it's definitely a little embarrassing to look back at, because I was getting, as I mentioned in those videos, I was getting very slap happy. I was like, wow, this guy does not talk to enough people in real life about Lafferty, because he's losing it talking to these guys. But it
It's a
was
lot
fun.
of fun. Yeah.
And I was reminded, I actually went and checked it out real quick. It was like on the third video. One of the stories we were discussing on that one was Lafferty's story, Thieving Bear Planet, which I recommend highly. And you were the one who brought it. I thought I brought it up. You brought up the comparison to Stanisław Lem. You were like, this may sound a little strange, but one of the main areas I keep thinking of, or one of the authors I keep thinking of about this whole very strange alien contact that Lafferty kind of shows a lot in his planetary stories, is Stanisław Lem. And I was like, yeah, totally. You know, I've read Solaris, and it really reminds the kind of incommensurability between two, alien civilizations or whatever. I was like, I'm always reminded of that with Lafferty. So yeah, it was you that brought it up. So it's cool that you then chased me up to do this book.
Yeah. So it seems very appropriate that we've gone back here and are going to take a look at. Do you think it's Solaris or Solaris? I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, sorry. I meant to ask you how you say it. Do you say Solaris?
I do, but I'm
Yeah.
not convinced that I'm correct.
I'm pretty sure everybody says that. Somewhere along the way, I got into this habit of saying Solaris, and I'm trying to correct it. I think I want to say Solaris, because I'm pretty sure that's what everybody says.
Ultimately, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
So let's say hello to some of the people who are watching here. And then, you know what? I'm going to throw a trivia cover in to see if people can guess what it is. So we've got Captain Finity, our time travel places here. Greetings to you. He has a channel too on YouTube. Book Voyager, welcome. I don't know if I know you or recognize your name. There we go. This is Jack, I believe it is, from Sci-Fi Finds. He's reading through the 100 best science fiction novels as according to David Pringle. So he's got quite a bit going on his channel. I think he just recently got over about novel 60, 61, something like that.
I think Pringle says a couple cool things about Lafferty in that book, but maybe somewhere else. Anyway, go on.
Well, you know what? Maybe Jack can let us know if he read any of Lafferty already. And good evening from Sephiros. He's out there in the UK. Both Jack and Sephiros are. And we already have a question for you. Where should I start with Lafferty?
I hate this question, because I should have such a good answer for this after all these years, and I never do, because I have not become convinced that there is a good place to start with Lafferty, because I just see so many people encounter him in so many different ways, and the ones that work for people that really are like, this is how I got into it, it just always seems different. It's short stories, it's novels, it's really tough, weird later novels will be the thing that really rope somebody in, or like a really well-known short story. I mean, well-known for Lafferty, may be the way in. So it's a little tough. I mean, you can try Past Master, because it's it's now out from the Library of America, and it's probably going to end up being his most well-known novel. It's the most traditionally science fiction, whilst still being very, very strange. But it may have a few handles on it that make getting into Lafferty a little bit easier. But probably, I guess see, this is the problem. The safest bet allegedly is the short stories. But the problem is if you read the wrong short stories, you might be like, well, that was pretty cool, but I don't get this like hype about how strange and unusual and totally unique Lafferty is, because for one thing, he hides a lot of that in some of this more seemingly straightforward stories. And for another thing, it's just you don't know which one you're going to run into, this like really, really bizarre story or something like, oh, that's a little odd. You know what I mean? So it's a little tough with that too. And I'll try not to go on about this, but this answer. But I also am not the biggest fan of that best of collection of Lafferty's short stories that came out not too long ago, because it's range of stories it's not diverse enough. He does a lot more than what you see in that novel or in that book, and I feel like they kind of front load the book with a lot of his earlier, slightly less spectacular stories, or maybe that kind of do some of the same things over and over again, and it needed to be broken up a little more. But certainly later in that collection, there's some of his very, very best stories and strange or what have you type of stories, like Thieving Bear Planet. So at least it has that one in there, and some others. But I mean, that's an okay place to start. But I guess usually I just say go find what you can and give it a go and see what you think.
That actually is the book, though. All for myself, that Best of Lafferty is the one that really helped me a lot, because it had different writers introducing stories and even having a little bit of an afterword on some of the stories. And that helped me really start to open it up. As you said, it got weirder as it got to the end there. So for myself, I would probably recommend those short stories, and then perhaps To Past Master, which, as you said, has a really very traditional opening, at least in terms of time travel and a dystopia type society, utopia, dystopia type society. But then it goes into interesting areas.
Yeah. People also used to recommend 900 Grandmothers, his very first collection of short stories, which I used to get a little frustrated with, because that too also was, I'm like, yeah, but he does so much more interesting stuff after that, because that's all like 1960s stories, which does have some of his best. Nowadays, I look at that and I almost like that better than the best of. And it does have one of my all-time favorite stories, a key story for Lafferty to me. It has Snuffles in it. So if you can get hold of 900 Grandmothers, that might also be a good short story place to start. But
if you
I need to make a list of stuff that you can find, because there's a lot of stuff you can find on the Internet Archive, short story here and there and Galaxy and whatever. If I made a list of my favorite stories that are available that way, people could maybe go check them out electronically like that. So that's homework for me.
True. And you'll discover when if you do watch some of the videos that we made together with Daniel here, that there's a theme of bears within some of the stories too, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I love it.
Let's take a look at a couple more people here. We got there's a good friend, I'll say a good friend of Sephiroth's, named Willie Todgerson, who does some of the videos on his channel, saying hi. And oh, okay, good to meet you, Book Voyager. Welcome. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to throw a little bit of trivia out there, and I'm going to throw a book cover up, and we're going to see if you or people online can discover this one. It's not that one that I showed you earlier. That was just an example, but here I'm going to add to our stage this one. I've cut off, of course, the name of it. So
I don't think I recognize that one.
No,
it looks vaguely familiar.
Okay, this is perhaps I think I have about 6 book covers that we'll look at throughout the talk here, and this might be the oldest one that I have. I think it's from a hardcover. Okay, we got no clue from some people here. One person says looks like one of the Hot House covers. That's a book by Brian W. Aldiss, but it's not that. I can see how the art kind of looks like it, though.
It does ring a bell. I feel like I've seen this.
Yeah. I'm just going to call up. I have actually a file of the full book cover. I'm just pulling that in right now so that I can throw it up there. Book Voyager is the winner. It is Solaris.
Oh.
It's the Polish first edition of Solaris. Way to go, Book Voyager.
I like that cover. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. thought I'd throw in sort of a little trick cover there to get us started. And then this one here, I talked to you about just before we came on.
Yeah.
We'll give the people online a chance because we've talked about this one. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
The previous one kind of had almost a surrealistic kind of look at a planet in the gray sky there. I don't think we're getting any guesses for this one yet. Except Sci-Fi finds he has it. Here, let me just make my friend here a little bit larger. That's the copy that Daniel was reading of Solaris.
Yep. I like this cover. It's very interpretive, but it's just cool as a cover. I'm not sure how well it represents this novel. Kind of does, if you in a really almost abstract sort of way, I guess.
Yeah, in an abstract way, that might look like the planet. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly. We would have to really dive into there to try to make a connection, I think, in terms of the story.
Yeah. It's like, are you going through some kind of gate or threshold with this planet or something? I don't know,
Yeah.
That's how a lot of sci-fi covers are from this kind of era. They're like, they look really cool, but they're tenuously tied to the content,
Yeah. It's great art. I love that cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I promise you, none of the other ones that we have later on are Solaris. So let's just start off with, this was Solaris is copyright 1961 in Poland. Stanisław Lem, who I think, if I remember right from another person telling me in a previous video, it's Stanisław is how you would now pronounce it in Poland. Stanisław Lem is a Polish writer. Poland at that point is part of the Soviet Union. And so one of the ways that Lem could write in ways that would comment about society and etc., was to use science fiction, because it wasn't necessarily safe or a wise idea to do that in any other form that would potentially relate to government officials that they would have to pass through their censorship. So I just thought it'd be interesting at least to say that about the context here. I don't know if you know anything about Lem or this time period.
No, unfortunately, I don't. I mean, I took a look at the Darko Suvin essay that's at the back of this version, which gets into a little bit, but even he was kind of, I think he was writing at the time that this came out maybe, and he was like, I'm not totally sure about my biographical information here, but but yeah, he mentioned some of the Soviet type stuff and that kind of thing. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know much of anything about that era or about Lem's life. I did see that he, I guess, got a degree in medicine maybe early on. But yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not a font of knowledge about Lem at all.
That's all right. I think one of the things I'm going to say is this novel is more character and mood and place, more so than plot. And so I think we're going to kind of talk freely about it because the plot is actually rather simple itself. I don't know. Would you want to try give a whack at telling us a little bit of a summary on the plot?
I can try, but yeah, I agree with you that it is more those other things than plot, which not always, but often I really love novels that aren't massively focused on plot and are focused especially on things like mood, place, that kind of thing. Oh, so this is like a very place-based novel, so it's like right up my alley, and it does the kind of almost Baroque in certain way. Well, I'll say some more later maybe about his prose style, even though I'm getting it through multiple translations. But there's an accumulative, like Baroque quality to it almost, to me, or at least to the descriptions of the planet itself. But yeah, so I guess it's just it's a technically, I guess, an alien contact sort of novel, and one of the best I've ever read of that kind. And it's it's a spacefaring time, and there are apparently any number of planets that Earth in its spacefaring age has discovered. I can't remember if it really talked about them colonizing planets or not, but in the midst of their space exploration, they run into this one truly unique planet that just blows their minds. And you get like several different angles on how much it blows their minds. Everything from personal psychological to scientific research to some other things. It's almost like poetic evocation and stuff. But yeah, so just the plot is just like, hey, in the spacefaring age, we discovered a very strange, perplexing puzzle of a planet that we, after years and years, I don't know if you remember how long the scope is for how long they've known about the planet.
Something like, I mean, they call it solaristics. There's like a lot of literature already on this planet because, I don't know, maybe 100 years of scientists have been studying it. And there's this space station, or this station that's hovering over the planet that has got had three occupants in it. And our main protagonist, Chris Kelvin, is sent to this planet with a bit of a mission to understand whether they should continue their research. And also on his way to there, a good friend of his who is on the planet, or on the station, actually passes away just before he gets there.
Yeah. And that's kind of where it zeroes in from the big picture I was saying into a tighter sort of plot, such as it is in this novel. But yeah, you have actual characters and a mission. Although I think my impression was, now I'll need to do rereads to see how much I just like missed things and how much this was intentional from the author and stuff. But even this, you said he has a mission to kind of do whatever. I don't feel like that was like clearly stated at all at the beginning. He's just like rocketing through in this pod, showing up at the planet, then seeing the station. You don't really know exactly why he's there or what his goal is, except that he's joining a research team, and the research team that he joins is in complete disarray, full of mystery, and it gets really weird, kind of right from the start. And there's a sense of, I felt anyway, a sense of unease from the moment he kind of starts talking to one of the guys and stuff. And yeah, so, and it's just like kind of I think Darko Suvin called it some like almost like a planetary detective story on one level, in the sense that there is some kind of mystery here but it goes quickly from like plot mystery to like metaphysical mystery or whatever, and that becomes the main point, not like, ooh, let's figure out what's going on and how do we move through, beginning, middle to end of a story, because even that, it like moves all over the place in terms of like, let's go way back here now, and now we're back right here on the station, and now we're talking about something else, and that kind of thing. In an effective way, to me, it wasn't a mess. To me, I don't know what other readers think.
Well, I think in some ways there's going to be a couple different kinds of view of this sort of novel, because there's an uneasiness, ambiguous, almost a horror feel to what is going on in this station. I was actually thinking that I would equate it to, I've read William Hope Hodgson's The House in the Borderland. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Yeah. You've read it?
I have, and I thought of the same comparison.
And I just was thinking, I called it the ultimate liminal space. And it has that uneasiness, that feel of foreboding, that there's something almost, I wouldn't say evil, but it's that contact with something that you cannot understand, a truly alien to us experience that it reminded me of. And I think my friend from Chris of Liminal Spaces is going to be actually looking at The House on the Borderland this week, for those who are interested in hearing more about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool that you thought that too. The thing why I thought of that actually was because I agree. I think this is an example of, to be like pulpy about it, an example of like space horror. This novel, I don't think it's reducible to that. I actually think it's a lot more than that. But I do think that's one of its major kind of things it's doing here. And I don't even think he's necessarily trying to do that. I just think it ends up being that way. But which I love. I love horror as much as I love science fiction. So when you blend them, I'm a very happy boy. But and he does it in this like hyper intellectual way that still somehow gives you like, chills and existential dread and stuff. But I was noticing, I was like, okay, this is like kind of like weird fiction. A lot of this is, and it's in its way, it's very Lovecraftian. This is almost cosmic horror. Now, I think he's doing some very different stuff in certain ways than Lovecraft. I think if he's pessimistic, it's a different kind of pessimism than Lovecraft. But whatever, okay. But when I thought of that, then I thought, you know what? It's like some other guys too. It was reminding me a bit of some stuff in Dunsany, actually, Lord Dunsany, with his Time and the Gods stuff that gets really cosmic. And I thought of House on the Borderland. Now, the part I thought of with House on the Borderland was way late or way in the middle of the novel when he kind of goes on this like trippy cosmic journey in his mind, almost out into the far reaches
over that
of space.
infinite plane.
In a way that makes no sense. Like it feels a little bit science fictional because you're out in the cosmos, but then it's like, this is like no universe I've ever seen with like its weird shapes and figures. And it's like, and I think the weirdness and the weird constructions and movements of Solaris's ocean were making me think of that journey in House on the Borderland. So yeah, that's a really cool connection.
Yeah. Before we get too far into talking about the novel itself, I think that I'd like to also, I'll just mention here, we got a couple of comments. We have Dagon Studios has joined us. He's a fellow Canadian. He loves Solaris, but not the Clooney movie. I actually watched the Tarkovsky Russian movie from 1972 this week. And I don't know if you've watched any adaptation of it. What's your thoughts on the adaptations?
Well, I saw both.
Okay.
But basically, like the last time I read this novel was like 20 years ago, and it was around that era of my life that I also watched those movies. And I remember liking the Tarkovsky one a lot, but feeling disappointed especially about how it interacted with the ocean itself. And then the other one, I just remember being kind of underwhelmed by it and forgetting about it, though I want to see it again. And I've even heard a few good things about it. But I watched, I did a really funny thing. It was just last night. I was trying to find a free version of the Tarkovsky one to watch, and I couldn't find anything with English subtitles. So I just watched it in Polish, and I just kind of threw it on. I kind of did some other things, but I just wanted to see some of the visuals. And I watched most of it, and I got really caught up in it, even though it was in another language, just watching their faces. And I had just read the novel. I just finished my reread. So I could kind of like fill in the blanks of what I was like, oh, I know this conversation from the novel and that kind of thing. Not that it follows one for one necessarily, but anyway, yeah, I think it's a beautiful film. I do like him. I don't know his stuff that well, but I've seen Stalker and The Sacrifice. And I really liked Stalker when I saw it. I need to see it again. I think Stalker is a better film than this, probably. But this had some of the same qualities, and it was just gorgeous. And it's very weird and unsettling because it does this weird thing going back and forth between color and black and white. I don't know if you're
Oh, I do.
It's like different shades of black and white, and the black and white's like really lush looking. I've never seen that before. Anyway, wow. So visually it was a feast to me. It was sumptuous, and it did more with the ocean than I remembered, and the clouds and stuff. Just still to me, not that's the flaw of the film for me, is it's just not enough of that, and it's like too much dialogue. And I think it could have achieved a little bit better of a balance. That's just a vague, really rough and ready hot take. What did you think?
Well, it came out in 1972, and immediately comparisons were made to 2001 by Kubrick. Some were saying it's the Russian answer to it. I think you got to almost leave that away. But the idea that he's like Kubrick in his visuals and storytelling, I can see that. I think that they both speak on a level that's way above other directors' levels in terms of communicating with film and cinematography. And so I know that Lem himself criticizes all the films that had been made, at least up till his death, including thinking that this one was a little bit too obsessive of love story and not enough of the weirdness about the ocean, which for those people watching who've never read this novel, the ocean is not really like a water ocean. It's of this, I was going to say gelatinous mass. I don't know, it's got a viscosity to it, and it can move and shape. And it truly is the alien of this story. But it can reach out to the humans in ways that we'll probably discuss soon. So let me go. A couple other people are saying something about him here. Let's go to a couple of people are telling us here. Oh, you use the word unease. Jack thinks that sums up the book really well, particularly in the early sections. I agree. Unease is a great word for that.
Absolutely.
A lot of love for Lord Dunsany
Cool.
by a couple different people here. Welcome,
I've got a video on him, little advert there.
Good.
It's like an hour-long video on his stuff, just me rambling away. But I read all these bits from it that sound cool that you might want to refamiliarize yourself with. But anyway.
Sorry, I think I said user-friendly. User-unfriendly. But I found him very friendly. Tarkovsky was nutters. I don't know about him as a person. But there we go. What's with that horse? Is that referring to this film? I don't remember. Let's see.
Yeah.
They're on a farm. Oh, yeah, there's a horse in this one because of the farm image, right?
There's an incredible scene where it's following the main guy figure. He's back on Earth. I think it's maybe a memory. And he's moving it's the camera's inside the house and it's watching him through the windows. And he comes to the doorway. And just when you think like it's like slowly timed, and I was almost like, this is a little, I don't think this is working here. But then what it did was awesome because it was taking a second for him to get to the doorway. And just when you think he's about to appear, this horse comes across and then he pops in. And I think there's maybe even a reflection in there somewhere. And I don't know. It was a magical moment to me. I was like, that was so cool. I did not expect that. But yeah, I don't know what the horse deal is.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, horses are pretty weird terrestrial aliens if you think about them.
I'm not sure if he's serious here that the Clooney was better. That could be, well, for you it is, but not for me at this point. And Stalker, which is Roadside Picnic, not so good as the book. Fine. Well, it's a movie, right? I have a bookmark here that I'll just make myself a little bit bigger here, that I always refer to when people talk about movies. It says, never judge a book by its movie.
Yeah. Good point. So let's see. Yeah, I still haven't read my copy of Roadside Picnic, and I can't wait to do so.
I haven't either. That's one that I need to go to as well. He was endemic of Russian filmmakers, put up cryptic stuff and never explain anything. He was making them for film critics, not his audience.
Well, I think so. It depends on the audience, because I mean, I do. I was explaining this to somebody I know recently who had seen Stalker and they were like really bored by it, and I was like, I get that. I've only seen it once. It was in a cinema on a Sunday afternoon, and I was like just loving it. I was just like feasting on it, just so enjoying it. But I was literally at points like nodding off because it's so slow, and it was like a sleepy Sunday afternoon. But like, so I get that there's can seem to be like an off-putting, boring quality, but I feel like his films do give a lot too, for me anyway. So it didn't feel like it's like this is just for me and the critics. And I mean, I guess I'm an academic, but I saw it before I was really an academic, actually, and I really loved it. So it very much depends on those kinds of movies. There's a lot of like arty, European or whatever, super slow, beautiful, whatever sort of films that do leave me cold. I'm just like, yeah, I'm not interested. But Tarkovsky, yeah, pretty interested.
Well, you know what? The last time that I watched 2001 by Kubrick, there very slow sections in there too. Part of the filmmaking zeitgeist, perhaps, in terms of trying to take film to another level.
Yeah, maybe.
Book Voyager says Penguin Weird Fiction recently published The House on the Borderland. Yes, I think it's a lot more accessible than it used to be. You can find it in many different places. By the way, there's a place called archive.org, which is an internet library that people load up PDFs of old stuff. So you can find a lot of stuff there. In fact, I'm sure you can find some of that the Lafferty books there too. Yeah,
I use that all the time, and there is a fair bit of Lafferty on there.
Yeah. Dagon agrees about the horse. Kubrick was better, according to User Unfriendly. Replicants. Horse was replicants.
Yeah, Yeah, there's a weird tie. There's a visual tie-in to Blade Runner, isn't there?
Mm.
But it's before Blade Runner, so maybe Blade Runner was inspired by the horse in Solaris.
And Brittany or Brittlebees agrees that criticism of Tarkovsky to some extent, but that one scientist on Solaris inexplicably having a naked dwarf in his quarters always makes him laugh. Oh, here, I'll put it back up if you want.
Yeah, I didn't hear that last bit. The having a. Oh naked. Yeah, I know that was. I wasn't sure what I thought about that scene when the small man comes out for a second and he grabs him and puts him back. I was like, what is happening? What is this man like? Because I don't know how much that even ties to the book, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember anything in the book about that. I think that was all Tarkovsky.
Yeah.
They have a lot of books on that research station. Yeah, that was before digitally thinking about having information there. Dunsany was a genius. Agreed. Selective breeding. I'm not sure what that one's referring to, perhaps. Anyway, there's some conversation here about the horse, really.
I can't believe the horse has become a big part of this discussion. That's hilarious.
It happens.
I barely noticed it in the movie, but
it happens. Kubrick can awe the audience. That scene of the soldiers singing the Mickey Mouse song and the spacecraft scenes in 2001. I'm trying to think of the soldiers singing Mickey Mouse song. Which movie is that? Is that the one that's in Vietnam?
I don't recognize that.
They'll tell me perhaps here in the. All right, I think we'll leave that. Thank you.
For the record, I don't know Kubrick stuff all that well, but I do love 2001. I think it's one of my favorite movies, and I do think it's, I would say, a far superior movie overall to Solaris, Tarkovsky's Solaris. Even though it's kind of equal artistically, but I think it brings it all together a little stronger, I think, than Solaris, for what it's worth.
People in comments are telling me yes, it's the Vietnam movie, Full Metal Jacket. All right, I think we should at this point maybe talk a little bit about the edition that you read. It's actually the same with the first edition that I've read over here too. Tell us a little bit about the translation for that edition.
Well, as I don't remember clocking this when I read it many years ago. Maybe I did see it and I'd forgotten, but it says at the front that it's like translated from the French. And I'm like, wait, I thought Lem was Polish. So apparently they French, translator translated it from Polish into French, and that was all these translators could get hold of, or knew the language they knew or whatever, and translated it from that French edition into English. And that's, I think, until about 2011, this was the only English translation. So I think this is probably what most people have read, would be my guess. And so I looked at a few things about that. I will definitely read the newer translation, which is allegedly more faithful. Well, I mean, it's from the Polish into English. And it made a difference, actually, in how I read this this time, because for example, like, it didn't seem to say a whole lot about the differences, but it did suggest that his prose style is more poetic than it seems in this translation. That this does get across his philosophical sort of prose style, but there's more poetics maybe, or poetry type quality, a poetic quality in his original. Okay, maybe. I still got a lot of poetic quality out of this version. But the other thing that really hit me is a very small thing that I thought, who cares? But then, okay, it's this. Snow, the character Snow, in the original is called Snout, S-N-A-U-T, which they said is meant to sound a bit like a snout. And that Rhea, was that her name? Yeah,
Rhea. In the translation you have, yes.
Yeah, and they did that as an anagram of what it really is, which is Harry, H-A-R-E-Y.
Yeah.
And those are really quirky. That reminded me of Lafferty and his weird names and stuff. And I know that I still haven't read any other Lem, and I know he does some weird kind of comical type stuff as well. So what I did, I found it really easy to do. I was really surprised that I actually changed it in my head all throughout this. Every time I saw Snow, I said Snout, and every time I saw Rhea, I said Harry. And it really made a difference. It was such a surprise. I was like, oh, that is odder. That makes this novel a little more odd, that he chose these slightly odd names in the midst of this, all this gravitas of this situation. And then it started to show me more and more the bits of very, kind of super understated and, dark sort of humor. There is some of that in this novel. And that hearing those names brought that out a little bit for me. So he obviously wanted that. He could have chosen a name like Rhea or something. He's like, no, this character's called Harry. That's interesting. That's odd. You know what I mean? And so, so that's all I can really say about the translation stuff, I think.
I read this one first in August when we started talking about this. And then there's only one printed version of the translator's name is Bill Johnston, who translated it directly from the Polish in 2011. He finished it. He's done other books of Lem, including Invincible, which I've read, and Fiasco, I believe, as well, and a couple other ones for MIT Press. There is some sort of copyright issue, though, and so this one has only been printed in a collector's type edition that is quite expensive, but there's a Kindle version of it that you can pick up. And so I decided to pick that up and sort of reread as we were going through this week. And yes, those names, they do make a difference, I think. It feels like with the other names, it felt like it was more of an American novel because there was Kelvin and Snow and Rhea. The other character that is on the base is Sartorius, and he has the same name still.
Yeah.
And the person who passed away, who was one of his friends, is Gabarian. I'm not sure if I'm saying those names correctly, but this is if you were looking for it, this is the image that they use in Kindle, at least, for the translation directly from Polish.
Yeah, and by the way, I think I saw what I was looking at said that the names Harry and Snout would have been odd to Polish readers as well.
Oh, okay.
That was like a little unusual, and it made me think like he wants to be a bit quirky here, and we need to kind of let him have that aspect to this. You know what I mean? Because it does help turn the solaristics, the endless, summaries of articles by solarists and whatever to it brings out some of the comical element of that, the comedy of errors, I mean, between just all the endless articles, but also there's a sense in which this is an extremely dark and strange and mysterious comedy of errors between two species that can't understand each other. If you think about what the gifts that the ocean is trying to give these people, if indeed that interpretation works for it, but it's like, there's a not hilarious misunderstanding here, but it is kind of comic.
And I understand that he has more satirical comedy type novels. I haven't read the Futurological Congress, but I'm told that that's a great one, and that's definitely part of his writing skills, is to go into those areas.
Which, by the way, as far as I could tell from the Polish, watching that Tarkovsky's Solaris, I believe he uses Harry and Snout for the names of those characters in the movie.
Well, at least the translation that I had that gave me the subtitles, that's what they used.
Okay.
Yeah. So the original is unfaithful to the translation. Borges.
That is very Borgesian.
And
that's good.
And the double translation for sure. So you know what, I've seen this with another author too, I think, in science fiction. I know I saw it with Invincible. The 1970s version is a translation of his work from German, so it's Polish to German to English there as well. And I can't remember the other author I've seen this with too.
I've never seen that before. That must be something that happens from time to time.
I think that maybe, like that one was from Ace, and maybe they only had a they had a translator for German or for French, but they didn't for Polish. So they went to that version. That's my guess.
The Polish readers are probably all going, yeah, this happens to us all the time. Not enough you translators know Polish. Come on, get with it.
Well, fortunately, we have Bill Johnston now, and he's a guy who really seems to love Lem, and so we get those versions now.
Yeah, totally.
So I was going to talk a little bit about we've talked about him going to the station and his friend from college is dead. He starts to, and the other people are very weird, and they start to see things on this station. Um, in some ways, it reminded me a bit of the movie The Thing from the short story Who Goes There, in terms of there's weird things going on in this station that we
Ah,
can't understand. They go very different ways, though. But
yeah,
that
but that's a
feeling at the
good connection
beginning,
with the whole research station encountering the alien,
yeah,
not knowing who's who and what's what. Yeah, that's a good. I like that. I'd never thought of that. That's a great
yeah.
comparison.
And so we start to discover that solaristics, we get these long passages actually from reports and books that have been written about the planet that he finds in the library. And so we discover more and more that it's thought that this uh, vi- viscosity of an ocean that surrounds the world is actually alive. And somehow they've done an experiment with X-rays that seems to have initiated visions that are actually tactile material beings from their memories that come to visit them. Um, and this is where it gets very emotional, and it gets to a point of people questioning their sanity, trying to understand what is happening here. Maybe I'll toss it over to you with that description and see what you'd like to say about that.
Well, let me back up 1 second to
Yeah.
solaristics and say I don't know if people want to comment on this, but I'm very curious how other people take the solaristic, because it's big chunks of the novel. Sometimes it's a whole chapter just on somebody summarizing all these articles and the sort of intellectual history of this encounter and its research industry that it produces. Like, I loved it the first time I read it and this time. I mean, obviously I'm a researcher, so I could kind of relate on that level. But like I said, the first time I read it, I wasn't a researcher yet. And I just like that kind of stuff in novels if it's about a topic I find of interest. And I did find this. So I'd be curious what people thought of that. But like you say, it's emotional cores in the encounters of individual researchers on that spaceship with these visitors. They call them mostly in the book, which is a cool kind of eerie term for it. That seem to have it's not clear on who the other people are, who their visitors are for the other people on the space station. But it does seem like in every case there's something erotic or romantic, and maybe some kind of guilt and shame involved uh, from that relationship, which comes up explicitly way late in the novel. It does say something about the ocean, or something they projected onto the ocean. I can't remember which. Focuses on sort of three emotions like grief, uh, not romance, but like some kind of love and shame or something like that as the most powerful emotions or something like that. So it's almost like this alien entity looked into our emotional core, into these individual humans and their unconscious, and went, where's like the heaviest vibe here of like, what are they feeling the strongest? Okay, I'm going to reproduce that for what we don't even know why.
No.
They make guesses, we can guess. But that's what they make a facsimile of is some person, or I don't even know with Snout or Snow what his, I don't know what was visiting him,
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
don't
not even
think they
sure it was a
reveal it.
person.
I don't think he does.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it picks up on something like that, and then like makes a perfect like physiological facsimile. In the case of the main character, it's his long dead. I don't know if it was a girlfriend or wife, but
Yeah, it
um,
was a partner of some sort. 10 years,
yes,
I think. Yeah,
yeah,
that she had been dead.
right. And so she's not aged or anything; she's still
Yeah.
young, and yeah. So
And
which
I
go
think
ahead.
this is at the beginning. So she passed away from suicide, and a situation where he had left her and in a distraught situation and had come back and she'd committed suicide. So that's where we got a lot of that guilt and shame and love mixed in together.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah, and they look at them scientifically, and they check out physiologically, except at the deepest level, which was beyond me science wise, and I didn't get a chance to look it up. But like their base material or whatever is neutrinos, I guess, instead
right.
of, it should be something else. I can't remember what. Sorry, my science is very bad. I'm working on it. Anyway,
Oh,
go ahead.
this was science fiction-y science though too. I don't think it would hold up too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be. I would like to hear. I'm actually. I will say this has whetted my appetite to get into like academic articles on Solaris, which is a very funny prospect. Thinking that it's all about academic articles about this planet, and then to go read academic articles about this novel is kind of hilarious. But I would love to see if anybody has taken on the science or pseudoscience or whatever of it and kind of and analyzed that a bit. That could be interesting.
And a lot of the takes, I had a viewer comment about it when they knew I was coming into chatting with you, that they had taken or they had been taught Solaris in a college course, I believe it was, and that the professor's main point for them, which they weren't sure if really that should be the main point, was that Lem was saying that the alien is impossible for us to understand or communicate with on levels, that it is just an impossibility for us to truly communicate with that which is alien from us. I would take it a step further in saying that I think he was also looking at how we don't understand ourselves or even the people around us truly. How could we understand something that's truly alien to us, or even another animal on our planet? And so that level is definitely the big unease here, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I would say that is the main focal point of this.
Yeah,
novel.
I would wonder. I would question whether that's the main focal point as well. Sorry, I had to turn off my mic, and now I can't get my screen back to how it should be, but I can still see it. But
yeah,
anyway,
we're still
good. The novel at a certain point explicitly says that. Like it says, maybe summarizing an article or something, but like, how can we expect to know an alien entity when we don't know ourselves? And it kind of does both sides of that. We don't know each other, and we also don't know our own interiors, that kind of thing. And I've
got the quote right here.
What's that?
How can you communicate with the ocean if you can't communicate with each other?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But I noticed that, and I thought, oh, that's an interesting point. But it feels like that and other similar sort of almost like, what's the word? They're all just these kind of like digestible summaries or comments on the whole enterprise. A handful of those get said throughout the novel, and then to me, they always felt like they just got swallowed up in much more complicated ideas. Let me mention that I haven't had a chance to look around and see what people are saying about Solaris, so I'm looking forward to like trying to find a bunch of podcasts covering it and stuff. But I listened to one short podcast the podcast is called Books of Some Substance, I think, and they had a really interesting thing they said. They said that the novel was about coming to terms with a livable confusion, like in other words, like where you could like accept that some of these mysteries and paradoxes and what have you just can't be solved, but you don't necessarily fully despair and just think, well, what do we know? We don't know anything. It's more like, okay, let's figure out what we can and be able to live with what we can't know, and so a livable confusion. But yeah, I feel like that kind of summary phrase or something is, because it's a little bit paradoxical too, is a little more fitting to the novel than just saying it's about, how we can't know other worlds because we don't know our own or whatever sorts of things. But yeah, that would be my take on that kind of thing.
Yeah. So we don't have too many comments here. Let's see. Oh, someone just did a comment here. I'll just read this one. It looks from a short story where the protagonist was matched with a perfectly compatible mate, and at the end they ended up merging physically. Well, that's not exactly what's going to happen in this one, but differences are actually a good thing. I'm not sure. Do you have a comment on that one?
Well, you know what it makes me think of? I don't know if this might even be what they're talking about. Long time ago, I actually heard an audio reading of the short story Blood Music by Greg Bear, upon
Yes,
which his novel was based. Like he expanded that out into a novel. And I've read the novel since as well. I really like it a lot.
I do too.
But when I read, and this was many years ago, I listened to somebody read out that story. It was very chilling. It's a little more horror-ish than the novel. But there's a part where toward the end, I guess, I don't know, spoilers, but there's like, it's almost like microbial existence gets externalized into the, the larger world, and things behave in that way, cellularly or whatever. Sorry, I don't have the exact language for it, and these two characters that are kind of falling in love also are being overtaken by this kind of an alien entity, but based on our own like microbes or whatever. And they start to merge and like physically start to like kind of tendril out into each other and stuff like that. And just, I don't know what that comment's referencing, but it made me think of that. And then I thought, oh, actually, I do think, yeah, I would say Blood Music and Solaris might also be interesting conversation partners with encountering what's kind of beyond us, even scientifically, like going, yeah, science and what science knows and what science studies and matter and all that, but there's still incomputable mysteries here, that are also very visceral and have strong elements of horror. So I think that could be an interesting comparison too, Blood Music and Solaris.
Yeah. User Unfriendly agrees, says that story gave him nightmares. I think that's a whoops. And also said, perfect understanding is not to be sought after and not achievable, obviously. It's very interesting. He says they contrast each other as well. It's very interesting. I think Solaris actually does stand up well in comparison with other things. It really brings into conversation. And I think that's because of some of the ambiguity that Lem brings to it. But it comes at that unsettling, deep level of relationship, and that seeking to establish contact and relationship, but not succeeding, not being able to bridge what you think should be bridgeable. And I would guess there's even frustration might be another emotion that could be put into there. And what do you do with that? And when they realize that these beings that are in their station now that come from their minds, there's a couple different levels. First off, what do you do with them? Do you try to dispose of them, or do you try to convince them themselves that they aren't real because they really believe that they are this real person? It takes you on quite a few different levels in the story.
Yeah, totally. And I forgot to mention something about Tarkovsky's film that I think currently I'm super fascinated by. I actually found that the two, sort of interpretations of this matter, I mean, I guess Lem's is the interpretation, it's just the original, but they actually, I found, really, really reinforced one another. It was like a collaboration where I really felt the two different things filled each other out. Like there were a lot of things the movie was doing that the novel wasn't, that helped augment what the novel was trying to say, and vice versa. And of course there were some tensions and counteractions between the two takes as well. But I found it really interesting that way. And one very subtle thing I felt like I was noticing in the movie was that you were getting, not, like I said, not enough, I think, of the ocean and its alienness as a complete entity, but you were definitely getting that from the movie. But then what the movie focused on through its black and white and sort of camera angles and various ways, it kept focusing on Harry in particular, or Rhea. That's
the female person from the protagonist, Kelvin.
Kelvin's visitor.
Love.
In a way that was reminding me that in her way, to the degree that she's in any way becomes sort of an independent entity from the ocean, even if she's not entirely independent, she's another alien, like another alien entity, and all their visitors are. So they've got the whole big ocean with its giant formations and all this kind of thing. But then they've got these like little individual aliens that look just like humans, but once you talk to them, clearly you're like, they don't have enough depth or memory or whatever it is, and they shouldn't even be there. They're dead, and they haven't aged and whatever else. And you can't. We haven't even gotten into this. You can't dispose of them. Like they try to do it to themselves. The characters try to do it to them, and like it's very painful to watch in the movie. But yeah, like so there's all that aspect too. And I felt like the film really collaborated well with that aspect as well as others.
And it's very interesting that they're not the ocean in person form trying to communicate. It is a manifestation of their minds that completely believes that they are a whole person.
Yep.
And that's really where it, once again, gets to that scary level.
Yeah.
We'll go back here. Blood Music and Solaris are antonyms.
Oh, interesting. I'd like to hear more on that.
Yeah, here's one more comment from User Unfriendly. And what happens when an imitation is convinced they're actually counterfeits, which happens in Solaris. Mm-hmm. They try to kill themselves. That's my takeaway from Solaris. Yeah, when you realize that you aren't a whole person, what happens to you? And when User Unfriendly is referring to that, remember that this person that we're talking about, Harry, her tragic end of suicide is definitely a foreshadowing of what this new Harry is going to seek out. And so it's a very an emotional part of this novel.
Yeah. I feel like he doesn't. I think he has certain interests, so there's a lot of stuff he's just not going to do. And I feel like it's a really fruitful text for like not only Tarkovsky. So many people could go into this and go, "Here's something you didn't even look at with this whole scenario you set up." And there's like a lot of, but in a really good, not like, "Oh, you missed that." I mean, there's a little bit of that, but mostly it's just like, "Oh, we could explore this too." Yeah. But what was I going to say there? What were you saying about the? The emotional, a lot of the emotional core of it is in them realizing that and then being like, oh God, what am I? I just need to end this. I don't even know what this is, my existence. Still blanking on what I was going to say about that.
Well, I think that it really reaches on an inside level to all of us about who are we really, am I fake? What is my core? How do other people see me? Those kind of levels, it really plays on that in a very uneasy way.
It does. And I think it'd be very easy to read Lem, especially even like in the last pages. But although that's where it's going to do the other thing I'm about to say as well. But it'd be very easy to read at least Solaris as just like pure pessimism, just like a really dark view of the world, maybe nihilistic, but certainly pessimistic. I think that'd be a bit of an oversimplification. I think it's very dark, and it's asking those like the question you just asked, because I kept thinking there were so many little elements that this time around I kept going, is this like a very strange, enigmatic parable about, particularly what the humans are doing? And so in that case, is this like a little parable of like, this is what it's like to be a human? You kind of suddenly wake up and go, am I real? Is there anything to me? But I don't think it's an easy answer of like, yes, that's showing us what humans are. I think you could answer it other ways too. You could go, well, the difference between those visitors, they're also called phantoms in the novel, but like those facsimiles, is that we actually do have a physical history that is continuous from when we were born till now, that is still intact. We're not dead. We do have, so you could answer that question. You could go, that's a good question. Are we something that just like doesn't make any sense and has no history like these visitors? Well, no, we do, in our limited way, so I'm just throwing that out there. I think I like him as a complicated thing. He's got a really dark flavor, but I just think he's pretty complicated, and that was Darko Suvin's main point in his essay afterwards, is that he creates open-ended parables that don't have closure to them, which I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I've become more and more comfortable with that too. In our comments here, a number of people are talking now about Blade Runner, and I think that that's a really good one with the replicants in there too. are you human or a replicant? That really plays in well. In fact, I don't know. Maybe Philip K. Dick took a little page out of Solaris here in terms of writing that story.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, science fiction writers play off of each other's ideas
Sure.
all the time, so it's hard to tell. But
yeah, no, there's some really, I guess, in some ways, not obvious, but like pretty, upfront connections between some of these things that I hadn't even seen. That I'm like, oh yeah, this totally compares to Blade Runner on some level, with the replicants and these visitors and that kind of thing, and what that, the questions that raises about what it means to be human, and so on.
Well, even maybe the filmmakers too, playing off of each other. Was it Ridley Scott playing off of Tarkovsky, perhaps?
I know, yeah. And also, like, that's another complexity in Lem's picture here, is that, like, he's merciless about these visitors being nothing, in a certain sense, nothing more than these facsimiles without history. But he gets enough into their perspective, particularly through Harry or Rhea, that I, as a reader, felt compassion for them, and the main character does as well. And that's a complicated. It's like, okay, so what? Maybe this is some weird little protuberance from this alien ocean that they pulled out of your head, but it's here now, and it seems to have some kind of emotional connection here, and it's building up its own new little history through these few days and so on. And maybe it's very human of us, and importantly human of us, to have compassion even towards these ephemeral things we don't understand. You know what I mean? So I think that's potentially in there as well.
And an interesting question there too is, if you decide, I'm just going to accept this person, I want to be with this person, I've really missed this person, what would happen though if I ever left the station, if I ever left the planet? Would they cease to exist? Is the only way to experience them to stay on this station? It's not a large station. There was only 3 people staffing it, and so on all sorts of level, you can't settle for a solution.
No, it's all about, like, the whole book is about proposing solutions and then knocking them down, like, in an entertaining way, I found. But yeah, because that's what he tries to go all in. It's just like, look, I know you're not hurt, but let's do this. We can make this work. We'll go back to Earth. We'll get married. And she's like, really? He's like, yeah, let's try it. And they don't even know if she'll last, outside the orbit of the planet and stuff.
Right.
But then I did find it kind of, I think, unintentionally amusing that, again, spoilers. Should we not do spoilers? Or, I mean, this is minor.
I think we've gone pretty much as far as we should go.
Okay. But when she I'm actually drawing a blank on how. Oh yes, I remember how she ends. But when she's out of the picture, Kelvin, the main guy, is not sad about it, like, at all. He's like, oh no, that's not true. That's not true. At first, I'm sorry. He is totally angry for a minute. I forgot about that. But I thought he got over it super quick after, like, an outburst. He's like, okay, so anyway, what do we do now? And then he's, like, imagining his life back on Earth, which is a cool passage where he's like, I'm just going to have to, like, learn again to, like, interact with people and interact with the world, because what I've seen and experienced is, like, totally stripped away what it means to be human and stuff for me. But, like, I'll get back into it and take my time. And he talks about there'll be women, maybe I will marry, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah. So I thought that was kind of funny that he got over it really quick. But,
yeah,
because the other guy, Snout, I think it is, asks him a really tough question. And he's like, look, I don't, questionable things about all kinds of language and perspectives. But he says something like, well, what if she was a hag? He's like, in other words, what if she wasn't attractive to you? And would you be all like, oh, we got to make this work? And he was like, I guess not. And it's like, oh, okay, there's some harsh truth there. That'd be the real challenge. Like, which was apparent. It's all off stage, but apparently that is the challenge with some of the other people's visitors. They're like, I don't want this person or this thing here. Could you have compassion toward that?
I got the feeling that a couple of them had visitors that they were attracted to, but others had visitors that they wanted to hide or not to show people that these came from their imagination. That's what I kind of felt like Snout was doing. He didn't want to even reveal at all who that was. And what was the other guy's name?
Sartorius.
Sartorius. He was very careful about keeping whoever was visiting him in his lab or quarters too.
Well, I don't even feel comfortable getting into who his potential visitor was, because it seemed like it was suggesting horrible, terrible, criminal things, but it was also suggesting it was like thoughts that he had that he didn't act on, but that now were made flesh, which was like super unfair, you know. But like, yeah. So yeah, it was like, that was a very, like, he pushed it. Just the fact that he only hinted at that made it much more uneasy and stuff. It was very effective in that way.
Yeah.
He did go there with some pretty dark, some creepy, nasty thoughts, you know, that could happen to you. So yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to remind people, 1961, this novel, quite an amazing novel for its time. When you think in terms of science fiction, that really they were taking it to another level. I was thinking that Lim was kind of starting to write on that level where we have some of those classic authors. You know, we talk about George Orwell, or we talk of some of those ones that go into literature, that spring outside of science fiction into literature. And I feel like that's where Lem was going at that point, that people were looking at him outside of science fiction for the things that he was writing. Yeah.
And related to that, I noticed two novels that I've read in the past couple of years that are from 1961, 1962, Hot House by Aldous and The Drowned World by Ballard.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I'm not the biggest fan. I'm going to eventually do a video on Hot House. I'm not the biggest fan of that novel. I don't think it works all that well. And I'm its audience. It should work. I want it to work. It's a cool ass idea. But yeah, but it tries to do like a relativizing of humanity in the cosmic situation eventually by the end of the novel, I feel, but nowhere near as effective to me as Solaris. Whereas and it's on Earth, but it's an Earth so transformed it might as well be a different planet, you know, so far in the future. Whereas Drowned World is also on Earth, but it's at the beginning stages of its transformation, but it's kind of very similar territory to me, where this strange change that's overcoming the Earth through sort of a climate change type situation and floods is like change. It's like working on the people's minds till they're starting to like go along with what the planet's doing. They're under the planet's influence and just being like almost like cooperating in humanity's extinction. Is that kind of how I read it? You can see my long video about it if you want.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think there's comparisons and contrasts there with Solaris, but like somewhat similar territory. Like, how does a planet almost exercising its own will over against ours, how does that affect our minds? You know, I think that's, I don't know, maybe people disagree who've read The Drowned World, but I thought it was kind of an interesting companion piece as well, from the same year or the year after, I think.
Yeah.
And a similar level of quality of prose, I thought, and philosophical sort of content.
Got a comment here from Captain Infinity. He's a writer. What if the replicas are human, but from another universe is a story I'm writing, literally right now. Playing off ideas is key. Sounds fascinating. The next comment then was Copenhagen multiverse theory. You need to explore the concepts of who's real and who's a fake. I'm not familiar with Copenhagen multiverse theory. Are you? No? I mean, I understand multiverse itself potentially, but I'm not sure the Copenhagen part.
Yeah, and the fiction idea of the replicants from another, did it say universe? Is kind of, I guess that would be kind of a multiverse type idea. I like that. That's strange. That's a strange twist on the whole replicant. That's a cool idea.
Yeah. And Never Let Me Go treats donors as less than human. The implication they're clones, like in the Island movie, where clones were grown deliberately as organ donors, like how they treat the visitors. Definitely is how they treat the visitors in this novel. Yeah, that they're less than human.
Yeah. I haven't read any.
Technically, they are not human anyway, because they're neutrinos down at the core, but it still is a good question in terms of, and at that level, what makes us human, or where, and should we treat anything that's not human worse than human anyways?
Yeah. That's another thing I think the movie, Tarkovsky's movie, does. It really focuses on the planet Earth as is, as almost an alien planet in itself, just through visuals and the way it almost contrasts those with Solaris and stuff. And I think it has a little more of a this would be my area of research and stuff. The movie has a little more of an ecological thrust than I think Solaris, the novel, does, which is interesting. Yeah.
Now, before I forget, I want to mention also, you had said that it reminded you of Lafferty. How did it remind you of Lafferty? As we were talking about earlier when we were talking about that in a video we made with you on another channel, on your channel, excuse me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a tough one to outline, but the main story it kept making me think of that we talked about is Snuffles. Like, if you can, it's on that Internet Archive. You can go find the story Snuffles by Lafferty. Just that whole like encounter with a whole planet that it seems to exert its own will and have its own thoughts on some level. It's done very differently in this Lafferty story than here on Solaris. At least it's on the surface, it looks very different. The more you kind of listen to its rhythms and almost like discourses of this novel and that story, I don't know. I think it's a very similar vibe. But yeah, just that like that they're trying really hard to understand. It's a team of scientists. It outlines in that Laffertian way all the sort of science they're doing and stuff. He's very like clipped, and he's almost like a folk tale, some of his writing, but mixed with like really nice prose too and stuff. And it's just really, really weird. But there's like violence and misunderstanding between these humans and this alien entity, and trying to look into each other's minds and not really understanding what's going on, and ending in this very open-ended way that leaves you with a lot of mysteries of like, what just happened, So that would be an example. And as we saw looking at a series of his planetary stories, like Planet Fall stories, as he calls them, where, either people are first encountering a world or they're coming back to one that's under-researched or something, a planet. And in each case, they keep running into these barriers, this incommensurability where like you're not going to understand this world, and if anything it's going to kind of consume you on one level or another. And it's going to probably get inside your head in certain ways, and this kind of stuff. And first of all, I just think that's awesome. That's just like makes for cool science fiction. I think it's a cool science fiction trope or idea or whatever, and I think Lafferty and Lem both do that. And one of our commenters on that video also pointed to that and said, oh yeah, I totally see Lafferty comparisons and stuff in that way. And it's funny too, because I think they may have quite different worldviews in certain respects, the two authors, and yet they're like really overlapping on this whole like, look, alienness is alienness. You're not going to get to the bottom of it. And Lafferty, you can almost miss that a little bit on some of them on a first go, just because he's so funny and weird, and you don't. But it's like really philosophically doing, to me, very similar things.
I think so too. I really do. Very good observation, by the way, on Drowned World from Book Voyager.
Cool.
Humans have found rationalizations all throughout history and excuses to treat humans as less than humans. Yes, and that definitely, there's a theme in there that you can play off of that. Copenhagen School of Quantum Physics suggests that every alternate quantum state is real and exists somewhere in the multiverse. So there we go. So it's from a true theory or school of quantum physics. Thank you, user unfriendly.
Yeah, I think that's something we've all heard. I didn't know that there was a specific school or name for that. But yeah, okay, cool.
So
at some point before we finish, I'm just going to throw this in there. I definitely want to talk a little bit about the ocean and its strange formations that it does and stuff.
Let's do it right now.
Okay. What can I start with you? Do you have thoughts on that? What did you make of that? Like, how did that impact you?
Well, the ocean itself has some sort of connection to us that I don't know that it would completely understand us either. We're totally alien to that ocean, but this viscosity of the ocean can change in density and form interesting things. There is in the novel itself, it is sort of one of those flashbacks that you read. In the movie, it's actually near the beginning, where a person coming back from the planet explains that they were looking for somebody lost out there, and they encountered structures within the ocean, and even a gigantic young child being formed. Very, very weird stuff. But the ocean in its own way seems to be making some sort of attempt to understand what is somehow telepathically communicated to it, or that it can feel about us. And so there is a visual level, at least, that there's a communication there. So when they use x-rays on the ocean and we start to have these facsimiles appear, it just seems to be another step of this alienness, um, on its own level, trying to connect. That'd be my take.
Cool. Yeah, I first time I read it, the giant baby was probably my favorite scene. I was like, oh hell yeah! I did not expect anything like this. That is freakish and bizarre and super cool. Good for you, Lem. Because I was already super enjoying these strange constructions and shapes that he goes to a lot of effort to try to describe, and they try to catalog them. There's the symmetroids and the asymmetroids and the mimoids and the couple other different kinds of constructions. They think they can say there's this, and like they're huge. I remember the first time I read it, picturing almost like cellular type activity and shapes, externalized, like to the size of mountains sometimes, or certainly huge. And it was almost kind of an engineering picture too. That was how I remembered it. And I got some of that this time, but as the novel went on, it got weirder and weirder and less, comparable to anything else. Like it's like this, it's like that, and some of the comparisons made only complicate that, because eventually it gets described as like the muscly pelt of an animal. And the way you watch it, I'm sitting here with my dog next to me, and the way you can see an animal's muscles move in it through its fur and stuff, and that the ocean looked like that in its movements and stuff. And it just threw so many different things at it that you're like, what is this? And I loved that. And the right filmmaker, it'd be really hard to do, because you could just trash it with bad CGI and stuff. But the right filmmaker, I think, could just make a feast of all that weirdness. And some of it's like so big that they can fly their spaceships into these structures and stuff. And sometimes they can land on portions of them and things. And oh man, and they don't know what it's all for. They like through the end of the novel, they're like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. We don't really know.
No.
Is it trying to understand us? Does it? It probably, but we still don't know for sure. So and that giant baby, I felt like was its like test toward making these facsimiles. That was like its first attempt. And I'd forgotten too that the visitors were a recent phenomenon, that after they had recently x-rayed the ocean, or sent out these x-rays to it and stuff, that it was kind of responding to that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think people don't talk about that aspect of the novel much, and it's like at least a third of the actual prose. And right, just when you think it's like he said all you could possibly say about that, there's a whole bunch more right at the end, in like new ways of describing that almost get more poetic and more beautiful with light and all kinds of things. And then there's these like giant foam wings like flying all up in the sky, and it corresponds directly to the ocean not sending visitors to them anymore. And it's like really hard not to feel like there's some kind of parable there or something, these wings taking flights to let the visitors go. I don't know, but you couldn't say for sure like that means that, it just feels mysterious and connected. But yeah, I would love to know what people think of those specific descriptions and stuff, because that's one of my favorite aspects of this novel. And I like each different kind of thing, the creepiness, the horror, the solaristics, and just all these different things. I like all of them, but one among them I just love. I see those shapes in my head all the time when I'm reading this, and just like it's all these like up thrusts and blah blah, and like toward the end again it's like blooming crystals, but it's better than that actually. That sounds a little like all too pedestrian or something, like or like kind of pulpy science fantasy, which that's cool. Pulpy science fantasy is cool as well, but he kind of elevates it. It's really beautiful, I thought.
One person says here, Barlow's Book of Extraterrestrials has stunning paintings of the Solaris creatures. I haven't seen that, so
Wow.
it's worth looking
book?
for.
Barlow's. Oh, Barlow's does. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that book in ages. I need to get hold of it.
Also, the only Lafferty I remember is a guy falling into the sky. I'm not sure which story that refers to.
I love that's for me that's like a slightly minor Lafferty story, but that ending where he falls in the sky is one of my favorite moments in Lafferty. It's like he loses his gravity. He just like for no explicable reason, and he's like trying to hold on to this tree, and he's like, I'm falling.
I think I read that story. Yeah.
Yeah. The Man with the Speckled Eyes, I think it's called.
Joe Chewbacca has popped in. He's a regular and has a YouTube channel as well. He's popped in to say hi. Enjoying Tantin Man Ramen at my favorite place. Okay, so he must be having lunch. He's from the West Coast of the United States.
Ramen sounds good.
Time travel is so last week. This week I'm all about parallel universes or visitors from one. Okay. James White's major operation has the dedicated doctors of Sector General trying to treat a planetary-sized intelligence. Yes. That's those were stories that came at the late 50s and into the 60s that were gathered together of very interesting stories. Speaking of Lafferty, every time I hear about that Manly Wade, it would be Manly Wade Wellman author, makes me think of a Lafferty character. Oh, what's that? Man. He had a very manly name. What was it?
Manbreaker Crag.
Manbreaker. Yeah.
Oh man, we had such laughs about that character on our videos together. Oh my goodness.
Jim has joined us. Let's go. Book Voyager says very good description of sunset and sunrise as well in Solaris. I would agree. Yep. The prose is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Bart has joined us. He's sorry that he's missed this. He's just tuned in now. He'll rewatch later. He is driving right now. He is the gentleman who was born and grew up in Poland and then came to the United States and is now an American. And he, if he had been available, would have talked a little bit about that context and his reading of Solaris. And there's a fundamental disconnect between authors trying to write about a truly alien intelligence and how an author has to write in terms of we, the reader, understand. Well, I think it's a very difficult concept to try to bring through. And I would think as the author, you're saying, I don't understand this either, but I'm trying to bring this experience to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you can comment on that. I'm pulling up another quote that I want to just talk about with you.
That was another aspect I loved about this novel. Is it's so intellectual. I mean, it's so intellectual, but it does not, to me, it did not feel try hard, as they say, or up itself, or even just like my words are failing me. But like trying to be like purely objective. It was the opposite of that. But like it felt so sincere. It felt like this is something Lem cares about and has wrestled with a lot and it is continuing to wrestle with. And I love that kind of sincerity coming through. So though it's so intellectual and philosophical and a lot of it's research based and whatever, like it just feels human. It feels, it has an emotional core and it has a drive to it for me. I'd be curious what other people think.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about something near the end of the novel where one character questions another character and says, do you believe that there can be defective gods?
I love that part.
That perhaps this might even be a young entity maybe making mistakes that cannot affect doesn't know how things will turn out. And is a god of some sort. Do you want to comment on that? It's just a very interesting concept, I think, that he brings up right there towards the end.
Yeah, I brought it up really late. I was like, yeah, you went there. That's cool. By the way, another direct connection to Lafferty's story, Snuffles. That's literally what's going on in that story. It's like almost like an apprentice god, finite god making mistakes and,
Yeah.
and trying to figure it out and saying, I'll get it right next time and stuff like, but in a way that still that is a little, it's more overtly comical. And so I don't think Lafferty is a comedy writer, but he's very funny and has a comic approach, but also there's like a lot of horror. That story has some like gore in it and stuff and some violence and things, but like, yeah, it's still very like mysterious and richly philosophical. It's not just like, ha ha, here's a young god trying to figure out the universe. It feels like strange and like it is very ecological and stuff, that story. But anyway, yeah, another direct connection to this novel. So I'm super interested in like religion, theology, spirituality, that kind of stuff. So I was like really happy that he went there. And like just like outlined all that, and it was like another thing he threw out there and like neither affirmed nor disconfirmed, you know what I mean? Like, but it did seem like that character was kind of trying to make his peace with the whole situation through some kind of idea like that. And it's an interesting conversation because they go back and forth. Well, what do you mean? Well, isn't mankind just that God? He's like, no, it's not that. And he's like, oh, so you mean Solaris, this ocean? No, even Solaris is not that God. It's like, it's almost like it was on its way toward that, but then fell back into itself, I think, as it said, and stuff like that. But like, what if, and then I'd have to go back and unfortunately, I'd really need to go back and look at the passage and kind of refresh my memory of what all it says. All I can really say at the moment is that I thought it was really cool of him to like, to jump in, because inevitably in a situation like this, I feel maybe no matter how far in the future, but certainly only this far, however far it is, I think there would still be theological discussions about this kind of stuff, or religious discussions, metaphysical discussions on that sort of religious or spiritual level. So I think it was smart and realistic to have characters think about that. And I thought what they said was fascinating. I mean, they talked about it being an evolving God, and a couple other interesting terms. I'm trying to figure out if I have it in my. No, I didn't get those down in my notes. I was like throwing these notes together, but. Yeah, so I really liked that bit. That's all I can say about it at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe we should kind of give a little wrap up of what we think of the novel. I'll just say that I think it's one that easily bears rereading every once in a while because there's a lot that you can get out of it. What would you say to somebody who's not read it before or is a little wary perhaps of reading it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I could give you like a reason to read it or like a handle for like, here's how it'll work for you. I mean, like I just for me, I'm not very good at like recommendations and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, just try stuff out. If it works for you, it works for you. I don't know. I mean, that said, I know there are helpful handles that people can offer. I'm just not the best at that. But I think
perhaps what attracts you to this novel, and you were very ready to reread it with me.
Yeah.
Why were you so ready to reread it?
Well, quick note on that I did have in my notes that makes me think of is that I do think it compares favorably with works by Gene Wolfe in that in many regards, perhaps, but certainly in the regard of like it is kind of that thick and layered that it really repays rereadings. They're both enjoyable to remind yourself of how much was going on, and it's kind of required to like slowly piece together some of the mysteries. And it is very much the kind of thing where you could have a message board like the Earth list or whatever for Gene Wolfe's works, for this Solaris. I don't know if that exists somewhere, where you could like people could really come up with some theories like, no, here's what I think is happening here with how it's getting into their minds or what the ocean is or this, that, and the other. And so I think it's exciting as a I don't think you have to be put off by how thick and layered it is. You can just be like, yeah, this is going to be slightly. I don't think it's that hard to read. I'm a pretty slow reader, and it wasn't too hard for me to get through.
200 pages, about 200 pages, perhaps.
Yeah, you do kind of need to slow yourself down a little bit and just be like, let me be along for this ride. Let me go where it goes. Okay, maybe I can say this. I've said all this stuff about how it like sums up all these academic articles and does that for multiple different chapters. First of all, it imbricates them. It like, it's like, here's some of that. Now here's some really intense drama and some creepy stuff. And here's some of that. So it breaks it up in that way. And secondly, you'll be surprised as it's getting, you might like be tempted to drift off like, okay, solaristics and this scholar's name and that theory, but then it tells more plot and story and atmosphere through those summaries of the articles, because then you'll get depictions of teams that went and did something, and you'll get a little bit of them moving around or flying or some accident that happened or whatever, and some of its ideas expressed contribute to the overall sense of dread or sense of mystery and that kind of stuff. So that all that academic type quality to the novel, I think, really adds to its novelistic qualities and its aesthetics, even its emotions. It really helps create the sense of awe and wonder, especially it accumulates by the end too. And you're just like, it's one of those books that if you can get through it, you're kind of like, whoa, that was something, man. That's going to sit with me for a little while. So the maybe more difficult aspects of it also add a depth that is really rewarding, I found anyway. And also, like I said before, it's like space horror. You know, if you like a good creepy science fiction setting on some space station over a sentient ocean and stuff, I mean, it's got all those vibes. It's really cool, you know. And there's some good interpersonal stuff and other types of stuff. There's a fair bit going on in this novel. So yeah.
And I think a lot of people consider this his best novel, or the one that most people cite as his best novel. I would say that I think because there's a lot of things going on and layers of depth and an ambiguity that's in here, I'm not sure for the first time reader that it might be the first novel I would suggest of Lem. I've read 3 novels of Lem. I've read Invincible, Fiasco, and this one. And I found Invincible to be the most accessible in terms of having a plot that develops and amazing ideas, and there's still that Lem different levels on it, but you get a story and you are hoping for a conclusion to that story. And so when it comes to Solaris itself, I think if you're ready for a read that's going to challenge you, you're ready to go. But if you want an entry point, I would suggest Invincible is pretty good.
Cool. That's good to know. And I'm dying to read some more Lem. I will say too, if you are already a fan of slightly more complex or, you know, big idea, well, I mean, I guess all science fiction is kind of big, but, you know, high concept or whatever, as they call it, science fiction, like what I think of as like Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun, or, you know, those sorts of things. I can't imagine you having much trouble with Lem. I mean, you may not end up preferring aspects of it or something, but I don't think it would be like an overwhelming read if you're used to reading anything like that.
I don't want you going in thinking it's space opera. It's not that.
Yeah.
You're definitely going to a deeper level.
Yeah.
So do you want to try some more trivia?
Yeah.
I know that we're making a big hard turn here, but let's see. I have a couple different covers here, and I think it's just sometimes it's fun to end off on some of these. I try to pick some newer books now because I sometimes go to vintage too often. So here's a newer book that has artwork on it. I had to cut off the top and the bottom.
By the way, that should be your channel's new tagline. Too vintage, too often. Not really.
I'm actually thinking about doing a video of before AI and after AI.
Covers?
I won't say too much more about that. I'll leave that as a teaser. James White Omnibus. You know, actually, that might be on there too. I have those omnibus novels. You know what? Let me just take a look. This is not from there, though. I took it from a different book, but I'm just going to check because sometimes artwork is used on 2 different books.
Yeah, that happens a fair bit. Lafferty's even got some of that.
It's not on at least the 3 omnibus books I have, but I have one here. I think it's the same artist. It might be John Berkey. But that's a very good guess because I think it is the same artist. Let me load into here what it actually is.
I feel like it's going to be around 90s or 2000s. That's my guess.
I think that that's probably a very good guess. It is an author that I want to read that I haven't read recently, but I used to love a lot. Jack McDevitt, Seeker.
I don't know.
And it won the Hugo Award for best novel of its year. I think it's something like 2003, perhaps.
Yeah, I remember some sci-fi artwork like that around that era.
Yeah.
Seen that? Yeah.
Let's try another one. I think somebody will know this one. Oh, I see that Chris has joined us. Whoa, this started way earlier than I expected. Sorry, I missed the beginning. Daniel, good to see you, Chris says. We talked a little bit at the beginning about, here, let me just go into this, about our marathon sessions together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Chris, one of your recent live things was one of the, I think maybe the first live chat I've ever jumped into and made some comments, and I was like, oh, this is fun. This is cool. I want to do more of this. And I enjoyed what you guys were doing with it. So I'll probably try to see more of that stuff. But it's fun to be part of one.
Yeah. All right, let's see if I can find another. Oh, I think that somebody's going to guess this one. Let me put it up there.
Oh, that looks familiar. Huh. It's reminding me of a Gene Wolfe book. It's not that. It looks a bit like the artwork for Castle View, the style maybe. Any deep cut Wolfe fans out there, confirm or deny?
I'll give you a hint that the books that I've picked for the next couple are Hugo winners, Hugo novel winners.
It almost looks like it could be a Tanith Lee novel, but maybe not quite gothy enough.
That's what Chris from Liminal
Station. Oh, he said Tanith Lee as well.
Yeah. And User Unfriendly says Melanie Ron. I'm not actually familiar with Melanie Ron, but we do have a winner. Doomsday Book.
This, by Connie Willis, maybe?
Yeah.
I've not read it. But...
By Connie Willis is correct. I'm just going to make myself a little bit larger here. And there you go. Doomsday Book.
Cool.
Have
you read that one?
That's from the early 90s here.
Have you managed to read that yet?
I did when it in the 90s. I did. I haven't reread it yet. 1992.
How was it?
I remember it being good.
Yeah.
Connie Willis has won a lot of awards. She is very big in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
Let's get that out of there. Get back to here. I've got two more if people want to keep on playing. Bart had it as well. He's back with us.
Nice.
So Chris has never even heard of it. Okay. And you're right. It's time travel. A lot of Connie Willis's books are time travel, linked to a university in the UK. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it's like a medieval setting or something. And I think it has a
medieval
sequel
studies, right?
Of sorts. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Here's another one. This is one I have not read, so I can't tell you anything about it. But I'm familiar with who the author is.
Sorry.
That's okay. We'll see. We got to give some people a little bit of a chance to type if they have a guess.
I don't recognize that one at all.
Yeah. All right. I think we're drawing blanks here. This is an author that I need to read sometime. Louise McMaster Bujold. Falling Free. And I've got one more for us. Let's give this a try. That's the last one I have. And what I've been doing is giving you the first editions as much as I can for these.
I don't recognize that one either. Sorry, folks. If you haven't been here from the beginning, you don't know that I have this really crappy technical setup that falls apart all the time, and I'm dealing with that at the moment. And
you've done well, though. It's worked out well. All right, I'm going to take a look here. I just have to call this up to my desktop so that I can get it loaded and hear what the answer is, and we'll see what the answer is. Oh, Liminal Spaces is asking, what is on your shirt, Daniel?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be in the shot. It's a little embarrassing. I didn't really mean it as self-promotion. I just thought it was a cool shirt to wear for this. But it's trying to get my.
When we get you back on the screen, I'll get you bigger.
Blaster the Rocket Man. That's my band.
Doc,
and this is like a space vampire. I know there's no space vampires in Solaris, but I thought it kind of fit.
Yeah. Tell me about Dr. Rockter. Where does that name come from?
Well, Dr. Rockter is. I'm just going to let the space vamp talk to you because my problem is I'm running out of battery and I'm trying to get my phone plugged in and it won't plug in. Yeah, Dr. Rockter is the name of a character in a Lafferty story. The story's called "And Mad Undancing Bears."
Bears, of course. Yes.
Yeah. So the name comes from that, and I technically am a doctor, of literature, and I like rock and roll. And so Lafferty was mocking rock and rollers, but that's fine.
So what is your band name?
Blaster the Rocket Man.
Blaster the Rocket Man.
It's an old band, but we recently did some reunion shows. It's no big deal. It's just totally underground. You don't need to worry about it, but you can just enjoy the shirt.
Well, Chris is asking, where do I find it?
If you Google it, I guess you would find. I think most of the music's only available like on YouTube or something. I think there may be a little bit on Spotify or something. It's all like Lafferty. It's all out of print. Like you can find one of our albums for like $400 on Amazon or something like that. And but it's 90s punk, eclectic, weird punk.
Bart thinks your shirt is really amazing. Here, while you're doing that, I'll just throw up here what the answer is to this one. Let's see here. Michael Bishop, No Enemy But Time.
I've only read one Michael Bishop novel, an earlier one called. Oh, what's it called? I really like it. Strange. Oh man, I should know this. I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, I want to read some more Michael Bishop.
Yeah, I think this might be the first Michael Bishop I'll read sometime. Is Ancient of Days. I've heard that this is a very good one. All right, I think it's about time that we're going to start to wrap this up here. Do you want to tell anybody, or do you have anything planned for your channel, or I mean, we've got some great videos in your catalog on your channel.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything about what I do is completely rough and ready, and your mileage may vary, and it's niche and all that good stuff. That said, given those provisos, I do think there's some staying power to the old videos I've made, and I think if anybody gets into it, it's worth kind of looking at a lot of them. There's some substance there. So it's the fact that they're old and I don't make anywhere near as many videos as everybody else makes. Doesn't mean there's nothing you might not enjoy on there. But I was trying so hard. I've had this latest chapter of Past Master recorded for like months, and I haven't been able to get around to editing it. And I was almost done, and I wanted it up today so I could say I got a brand new video up. But so I should have brand new video up tomorrow, the next thing. And I've got several more the important things I need to do with Lafferty and some other stuff I'm going to cover, and hopefully another collaboration video with well, I won't say who, just in case it doesn't work out, but a previous collaborator. But so there'll be more stuff, and it'll trickle out like usual. That's just how I did it.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention to you, actually, one of the YouTubers that I communicate with regularly is Ira from SF Words of Wonder, and he just reviewed Past Master. And cool. Spoiler, he loved it.
Oh, I'm so excited to go look at that.
You might want to look up his video.
Yeah. See, like if you start talking positively about Lafferty, that's when like the slumber party girl in me comes out, and I'm like, yay! You like Lafferty too? Cool.
All right. So I think we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me on VSF Live. It's really good to chat with you again. Appreciate you taking the time on your evening to come out and do this and to read again Solaris and to watch the movie again, even if you were watching it in Russian. So.
I think I was saying Polish earlier, wasn't I? It is Russian. Yeah, sorry. But I do just want to say that this is one of my favorite science fiction novels, and maybe one of my favorite novels. It definitely would go in my top 20 science fiction, maybe my top 10. But it's like, yeah, I love this novel so
right up there.
So thank you so much for having me on, just to do anything, but like for this novel.
Yeah,
really, so
very cool. And thank you all for joining us here.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time on VSF Live. Take care. Bye now. And keep reading.